All right, welcome back to Mild Sauce Live. I'm your host, Jake Krez, and we have a very special guest tonight. We've been recording here at Soundscape Studios for the last few weeks, and we've been lucky enough tonight to get the one, the only, Michael Kolar, owner, operator of Soundscape Studios, closed sessions, man of many extraordinary abilities.
Man, thank you for those.
I felt like it wasn't doing you justice. I was trying to get to it, but yeah.
I'm a
thanks
short bio enthusiast, so we don't need to.
Ooh.
Oh wow! Shout out Coltrane.
You just caught us on a Friday evening with rain going outside. This is
Hi, I'm Michael Kolar. You're coming live from the Jazz Studios at Soundscape Recording Studios
super jazzy.
here on Chicago Avenue.
This,
Does my voice sound rich and
it sounds
pleasant?
excellent. Yeah, I think
Okay.
we got
All
the
right.
sound down.
All right,
But
beautiful. I was making sure. I didn't want to disrespect the legacy of Coltrane. So I want to make sure my
Anyway.
voice was as smooth as the jazz.
Anyway, we're here at Soundscape. Tell us a little bit. What's going on? I don't know, man. I don't know how to jump into it with you. There's like so much to so many starting points we could get to, but
The number one focus right now is actually yesterday I launched Sonic Summit.
right,
Which-
that's obviously the headline news right now.
Exactly. I've always had a fantasy of creating my own summer camp, where I could like pick cool people, like good food, like cool activities,
Mhm.
and just do something like that. Needless to say, I never got a summer camp, so I'm kind of making one for 2 days here at the studio. But we're going to spend 2 days in the studio diving into every aspect of record making, coupled with taking the guests to a variety of some of my favorite Chicago culinary hotspots. So it's a food and audio tour de force of the record making process.
And you were telling me about this last week. You're not gonna have sleeping bags. This isn't a sleepover camp, but
No, it's a day camp.
it's a day camp.
Yeah, it's a day
Not
camp.
putting bunks up in the studio.
February is a little cold for sleeping over. So, but yeah.
But a whole weekend with you to get to know the ins and outs.
Yes.
They're gonna be cutting records. I mean,
Gonna cut records. Going to be secret surprise guest artist to record. We're going to pull up some cool sessions and look at the mixes. So I'll pull out some old Pro Tools files from some of my bigger records. Take a look at some of those techniques, processes.
Mhm.
We're going to fire up the tape machine. We're going to edit the tape.
So
Use analog gear, digital gear. Talk about mastering, plug-in versus analog.
all
so-
that nerdy audio file.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'll be
yeah.
a nerd. Man, my camp's
Nerd
a little
fest up
nerdy.
there. Yeah, yeah.
It's a little nerdy.
But
so.
at the same time, I mean, to take people back a little bit, for those who might not know, Soundscape, the place you built here on Chicago Avenue, has been like a centerpiece to a lot of the music that's come out of Chicago for what now about the last decade, beyond like.
Decades.
Yeah, I mean, I've known for the last decade, but I know your history goes much deeper than that.
Yeah, Soundscape started in '97 when I was still in high school,
Right.
actually.
And you had a
So-
different spot too back then.
Yeah,
right?
we've been in some different locations. I think like all like high school kids, it started in the garage
Yeah.
and put some of the magic foam fingers up in a corner and was recording my friends' bands, and I'd have my parents pull out the cars on the weekend and do it in there. Then from there, it morphed into the back of a starter and alternator shop on Fulton.
I've
Which
heard
is-
about this one.
Yeah, which was an amazing. My parents had a shop. They rebuilt starters like car parts,
Okay.
and you'd have to walk by like dudes hammering together starters to get to a studio in the back of the
Exactly
building.
what you want for a sound studio in the front, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I
Bunch of
tried to
people
build
hitting
it as like a
stuff.
speakeasy type of thing. It didn't
Yeah.
really quite work that way, but that was our first like proper out the crib location.
Okay.
And spent about 8 years there. Got some of my first like breaks. I got
Yeah. What kind of stuff were you doing? Like what
George
kind of artists were
Clinton
you
and
working with? That
Parliament
was a big one,
Funkadelic
obviously.
walked in the door.
How did that happen? You've told me these stories. Like I've gotten fragments of your George Clinton experience, like throughout the time I've known you, but like
It's-
I've never heard the origin story.
It's
Like,
left my brain fragmented in the most beautiful way. No, how this worked, I produced a debut project for a Chicago punk band called Secret Agent Bill.
Okay.
Really cool project. Loved it. Flopped. No one cared. It did nothing. So, kind of forgot about it. And that CD randomly made it to George Clinton's tour manager,
Okay.
who was a native Chicagoan.
All right.
And he really liked it, played it for George, And George was like, man, I want to produce these guys. I kind of want to do with punk what I did with like Red Hot Chili Peppers and like try my hand at doing a punk thing.
Okay.
And he liked the energy and the drumming and the groove of it. Because, I mean, punk can sometimes be simplistic, but these guys were a little like more like punk on steroids.
Okay.
So, and he didn't really know much about punk and, you know, the tones and sounds. So he brought me on to engineer with him overseeing it. So spent about a year with this guy in and out the studio and touring, and then he took the band under his wing, and he had, what was it called, George Clinton's Showcase of Stars. I don't know, but he had like a whole touring review with some of the other groups he was working with, and we kind of were like the lowest on the totem pole of that.
Okay.
And rolled around with him, and I did assistant work for him and helped do sound at rehearsals and drive him around. And
so you're like, your role within his world just kind of like expanded?
yeah, in all things basic. Yeah, nothing too cool, you know, but yeah, learning the ropes, but it also allowed me to watch like a maestro. Like, I've never met anyone who drips more musicality from them. And his ability, when you sit at the board with him, he has this way of like giving you his attention where it's like no one else is on the planet but you and George, like almost hypnosis.
Okay.
You know, even like his stance and his chakras or I don't know, he just like projects. This man so like beams into my brain and dreams and stuff. He's like a presence, man, you know.
It makes sense. I can imagine, like, especially, how old was he at the time you were working with him?
Mid-60s.
So he'd seen he'd been through
a
lot
yeah,
of studios and a lot of things by that time. So
exactly. So yeah, he definitely knew a few things and saw a few things. And man, it was an amazing time.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I first started coming around and hanging, like, I remember like sitting at the coffee shop waiting until you guys would let me come over and like do an interview or something like that. These were the stories you always told us, like when we were sitting around waiting for something to happen, was like the George Clinton stories, the early days, stuff like that. What was it? How did you like build those early days into like what it is now? Because now, like, you have a whole building. You run a
so
business.
when
like,
that happened, I was in that first incarnation in in the back of my parents' shop, and that was when I started working with George. I just knew I wanted to make records, and I wanted to own a studio.
Okay.
And the studio business was radically different when I started, much more regimented and professional and built out, and you know, like, you know, the quality of studios.
Was there a lot of other studios like what
Oh
you were
my
trying to do
Lord!
at the time?
Oh, there was there's a publication called Illinois Entertainer that when I started had something called the Studio Guide, and the first one I got, there was about, I kid you not, 70 studios.
Really? Was it all the same like level of studio? Or was it just
no,
like,
I mean, it was from, you know, CRC, like super quality 10-room facilities, down to entry level guys like me, and many levels in between. And there was so many more levels in between. And the difference back then between like a $40 studio, a $60, a $90, and $125 was like night and day.
Really?
You know, so is this, you know, because technology advances and the money, you know, there's been a great democratization of audio to where you go get a $500 Pro Tools M box that comes with Pro Tools, and if you're talented and have an ear for this, like you can get workable, you know, above the word I'd say workable, not like what we do here, but you know, that was, you know, we're the best. we are the best. That being said,
shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Man, the last couple of years, some of my biggest recent records were done recorded home, where they make something at home and I come in as jump in on the mixing and mastering phase. So, but yeah, back then, but anyway, back to Illinois Tenor, every year that studio section shrank and shrank and shrank, and they don't even have one anymore for like the 7 of us idiots that want to try to run a studio
here. Is it just because it's so democratized now that the money's not there for it? Or is it just a lack of people? Like, you come from a generation of like, you had to put a studio together, right? Like, you have, when you go down to the A room,
it's a myriad of issues, from zoning, economics.
Oh, really?
Where do you put it? How do your neighbors deal with like artists and rappers coming at all hours and stuff? You know, so you need somewhere kind of quiet. You need somewhere kind of isolated. You know, sound quality, you know, budgets. You know, we are in the Midwest, so there's a ceiling to almost how much you can charge here, and you know, and what you can put into where, you know, it makes it like a worthwhile return on investment. Like, so it's like so many reasons. It's just, you know, you go on for hours with that.
So like when you came in here, what was the process like starting this place up and like getting this building under your wing? Was that just built off
This
mixing?
was the first place that I owned.
Okay.
So this was my first. So I had the location in the shop. Then
Mhm.
from there, John Monopoly hooked me up with this crazy Bulgarian cat named
Okay.
Krasi. And Krasi was managing Crucial Conflict.
All right.
And for reasons we won't discuss on the podcast, this
Sure.
man had a very elaborately built out studio complex
Okay.
that had no gear in it, nor anyone who would know how to use it if there was.
Right.
And Krasi came, I was mixing a Kids in the Hall record when John Monop was managing them, and he invited Krasi over,
Okay.
and he's like, man, like, move into my space, mix and master, like, Crucial Conflict, for free, as, like, like, I'm going to give you this space, we're going to work out a profit split, and then you got to do free studio time for Crucial Conflict. So I was like, and back then I was trying to get out of the shop and, like, have a real place.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, that was like almost a no-brainer. So then I jumped to 2010 South Wabash, it was kitty corner from Reggie's Rock Room.
Oh yeah, that's
I remember
still a studio today. Right?
Yeah,
Complex is over there,
well, no, I
right?
think Complex actually left. I think.
Oh, really?
I think KX left that spot.
Okay.
So
Last
and
time
what's
I
cool
was-
because
yeah.
when I started leaving, we started renting KX rooms, and he just kind of picked up as because there was 3 rooms there, and I rented 1 to KX when it was Soundscape. And then,
Okay.
then after a
I've
while,
definitely been there.
yeah. Then after a while, I got my own space. I'm not sure if it's still a studio down there because I know
Merc
Complex
was running-
moved.
Yeah, Complex.
Merc
2010.
is doing something even big. I think they've moved, and
Oh really? I haven't kept.
I
track,
haven't
but
been
yeah,
to the new one. It looks dope
I'm
on
sure
the
it does.
gram, and
Yeah.
Merc knows what he's doing, and
Yeah.
KX a good dude. But I haven't seen it. So
But so I didn't realize that. So that's where
Yeah.
Soundscape was there before that.
man,
was
I
over.
remember like one time I had a session with Bun B, and he could just walk out the back door, walk down the alley, and then come in the stage door in the back of Reggie's. It
That's
was
actually
like
really
very.
dope, yeah.
It's very convenient. Or for any show, a lot of guys would do that, or like that.
What's like the
and
most ridiculous situation you had, just like in that context, like working out of that space? Because that the traffic there had to be ridiculous.
oh man, because
Like when you talk about people coming through town, going to Reggie's, like I'm sure there's.
Yes, and also
What can
that
you
was
say
at
on
that
the
was at the
podcast?
apex of rap blogdom. So that was
This is like what 2010 or something.
Yeah, exactly. Because let's see, it's 2020. I moved here about 8 years ago. So yeah, I was
Okay.
there for about 6 years, but it was like the apex. Like every other night, Andrew Barber was there filming something for Fake Shore, and then if it wasn't Andrew, then Alex was there
Yep.
for Ruby Hornet. So many people coming out. It was like, and we had these massive lounge spaces there, so we
Right.
could be so much more hospitable in that basement. So it'd just be like
Yeah.
massive entre. And also as a younger man, so I liked a little bit, a little bit more of the turn up. But it was like a living pop-up shop of blog rappers, and like then of course with Crucial Conflict also there, like we had. When Bilo had to do a bid from Do or Die, we had his going away party there.
That's crazy because I
Yeah.
actually interviewed Bilo when he got out of jail at in that same basement.
We did Bump J's last recording
for
there
a double
too.
XL story a few years ago. Yeah, but
Really?
Yeah,
Oh Lord, that's
things come full circle. I guess.
that going away party is not suitable for podcasting. We'll skip that one.
I think
but
I've actually heard stories about it over the years. Like it is like that legendary. 'Cause
R.I.P. the coffee table, man. It never bounced back. It never
I said
bounced back.
R.I.P. the coffee table.
With all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put that coffee table, to paraphrase your childhood. Is that a fable? It's not really a fable.
Like
What would
a
that be? What is that called?
parable?
What is Humpty Dumpty? A parable? No, kids don't have parables. That's
Or like a
dumb. Here's
I
your
don't know.
nighttime parable, Johnny. It's like, how do you? It's not a fable, though.
it's like a children's story. I don't know.
Children's story,
I think
yeah.
we can agree on children's story.
Okay.
Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah.
If
Humpty-
you guys know what it is,
It's barely
let
a
us know.
story. It's no, of course they. I don't think many of you listeners.
Sing along. It's got like a song to it. I feel like there's a name for it that we're not.
The Humpty
not like
Dance
a
was by
lullaby.
Digital Underground. That's not relevant.
No, I mean like it's got like a sing-songy nature to it, like
Okay.
Humpty Dumpty.
That's what's up.
But anyway,
Too many tangents. I'm sorry.
it's all right. So you get here. I mean, like I started coming here in 2012, 2013. I didn't realize that, like you had newly minted this place at that time.
Yeah, it was. I wanted my own space, and I wanted something that wasn't subterranean.
Yeah.
I wanted windows, like
feel like you weren't.
When you get to a certain level in your career, you start getting a little sedity, and it's like fresh
Tell
air.
me about these levels.
I
though.
want
Hold on.
fresh air.
Tell me about these levels, because I've seen you hit these levels over time. Like you're lavishly. What was your mileage thing? Where you got your tag over here?
We can't even speak on that.
You put your
it's
tag
a secret level that they don't let people know about.
Secret mileage levels. You know, you're all over the world now. You're worldwide. You're international Kolar. What's it been like graduating those levels? Because I feel like once you got here, you're very much in your element, right? Like that's when you really started.
No, by the time I moved into my own space, was like that was like game changing for me as far as a business. When you own a building and can build it and set it up the way you want, like it was finally like it was like I always fantasize about building from the ground up. That's not in a basement or a back of a starter shop or like a real live boy building with windows and ceiling. You know.
What was this before?
Oh man, this is Studio B. This was an apartment.
Oh really?
So that wall wasn't there. There was a pass. That wall wasn't there. There's a pass through to the kitchen.
Okay.
The front was a studio.
Oh, so it was already somewhere.
Yeah, the dude worked up in A and then lived back here. So
it kind of makes sense when you walk through it a little bit.
Yeah, because the reason that little lounge is so short because it's on top of the A-room bathroom. But when I found the building, this had a mattress in there.
Oh, really? That's where the guy slept? That's crazy.
That's pretty, pretty dedicated to his craft. So obviously, but we had to build from the ground up. And A was there, but we like ripped it down to the bones and redid everything.
Yeah, because you've told me about the
it's like
special wallpaper. And...
Yes, we do have French wallpaper. French wallpaper in Studio A. But we put like a 15-foot copper rod in the parking lot in the ground for deep earth ground.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I got to do some stuff I always wanted.
What's that? I mean, what is it? For my ignorant ass, what does that mean? Put a pipe in the ground.
Here's what I'll explain it to you in a way that relates to something you do, because earth grounding, electrical grounding is a deep rabbit hole. But we all have seen Pro Tools or Logic, and you see when it's silent, there's just a flat line. That's supposed to reference true earth zero ground, because electricity is positive and negative, and it swings, and if nothing's happening, it should be flat. The problem is if you don't reference true ground, what we do in modern society is, because not everybody can do that, it's called OSHA ground. So no one gets electrocuted, but it grounds to the plumbing or the metal pipes in your building. But those also have your refrigerator, your microwave, I don't know, whatever, video games, like what other crap you have in an entire building, and that's contaminating. So by breaking that and having a deep earth ground, it's like you're getting true ground. So also when your speakers are turned off, if it's true ground, they're not pushed forward or back, so you have better transient response.
So this is something you can learn at the.
You can Google this.
Well, I was gonna say,
or at Sonic. Yeah, I will make every attendee, no matter how cold and snowy, go to the parking lot, shovel the snow out the way, and stare at a copper rod in the ground. It's gonna be a real fun time.
That's a special treat for a Saturday night.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you also, at that time, you were also working with Alex. You mentioned Alex and Andrew would always be around.
Yeah.
Ruby Hornet was in your studio a lot.
Yes.
Is that how that relationship kind of coalesced? And
yes, exactly. All of a sudden, something very strange happened to my sessions, my rap sessions, at the that decade plus ago. It was all of a sudden. It always, the manager was still there, the artist was still there, the stoner buddy on the couch was still there, the barber popped by and cut hair, and the occasional female guest. But there was a new character, and it was normally some type of mildly awkward dude in the back with this gizmo that we all forgot about called My Flip. Or what?
Oh, I remember those flip cameras.
Yeah, because we're at that point. We're talking I don't even think they had the iPhone 3GS.
No, you had to use those. It looked like a little wallet.
Yeah, I think it was this was iPhone 2, which wasn't was
You're talking about the flip thing where
it was a dedicated thing that was the size of a phone,
and you hit it and the USB popped right out, right?
Yes, exactly, and a little switchblade, and then you.
That is like a very deep cut weird thing. Yeah,
and they'd just be standing there, filming me make records and filming everybody. It's like, what the fuck is this guy doing? You know, it was because when I started in engineering, no one gave a fuck about the engineer. I was wallpaper, man. I sat here, I run the gizmo. No one asked a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one really cared what I was doing, how I was doing it, I don't know what happened in society where over the last decade, now everyone is curious about the studio and engineering. There's YouTube shows and
it kind of goes back to the democratization of just like the sound.
Exactly. There's like 3 glossy magazines you can get at an airport every month dedicated to what I do for a living, you know, which is insane. And like probably 1 million hours of YouTube videos on how to make a kick drum good.
Right.
There's, you know, there's none of these resources, and no one cared about this except like an artist and a label and a manager.
And Alex Fruchter.
And Alex Fruchter, and yeah,
shout out Alex.
And shout out Alex that cared about this, and you know, started filming. I was like, you know, and then it's like, I think it was GLC was like, yeah, man, he runs a music blog, and I'm like, a blog. And I barely knew what a blog was, or I thought it was something like college kids. I don't know. It's like also I was like a studio hermit, and you know.
No, I remember those years.
Yeah,
it was
like,
like,
I was,
like,
you know, I didn't.
It wasn't
you know,
as like obvious as what it is now.
Yeah, yeah. So it wasn't as obvious, and you're also asking the wrong guy. So you know, Alex, I started talking with him, and you know, told me about Ruby Hornet, and I was like, yo, let me. Man, they started advertising the studio on the site, and I started mastering his mixtapes that he was dropping with, you know, there's the internet era. So, and then Andrew Barber started coming around. It was just an interesting time.
So how did you and Alex end up like combining forces into closed sessions?
Very circuitously, and pragmatically, you know, just all of a sudden I'm sitting in a studio with him because every night there's like a different artist, like Mickey Halston needs something or whoever. This the different, you know, cool kids, whatever was at that time, like really, you know, holding the city down. So we started talking, we had stuff, and then he was just like, man, like I want to. And then it was like right around like the On Smash takedown, remember?
Right, yeah.
You know,
when, like,
and he was like wanted to make his own content instead of reposting everybody else's, because that's what, you know.
That's what they got in trouble.
You know, so he had his DJ residency, and at the time he booked a relatively unknown artist named Currency, who was starting to ferment. And Currency is like a really cool dude, but he's also like a very interesting. Like he didn't want to go to the club. He didn't want to go. He was just like, man, like, can we go to the studio and can I like smoke weed and listen to beats and make records and invite nobody over? And I was like, yeah, man, we'll have a closed session. That's what came out of my mouth. And man, and they filmed it and made the documentary. So it really just started as like content.
Yeah, because
you know,
like, I mean, for everyone like not familiar, like Ruby Hornet, Fake Short Driver, the 2 leading blogs in Chicago at the time, websites.
Man, they would
Ruby
not.
Hornet
They would not.
With the closed sessions, started out filming. It would bring in an artist from out of town, pair it with a producer,
a local artist or a local producer,
put them
and
together,
collab, and then film the process,
and then put out the song.
Yeah, and then also take them to some Chicago, like we took Bronson to like, you know, like like Blackbird for like a fancy, you know, so you know, stuff like that. And it's like without Andrew and Alex too, man, like I like 60% of this town's music industry jobs would not exist.
That's fair.
Maybe 70.
I came in and asking them for advice.
If the blog era didn't allow Chicago music to like collectively bargain and, you know, and get our consciousness aware where the other coasts and people, like, man, when I started, it was brutal when I started in this city, you know, especially in rap. It was really, you know, there was no scene, there was no community, there was nothing to do with what you made here. There were no blogs. All you could do was like make hot records and try to get it with A&Rs, get a deal, move to a coast, and that was the only viable plan. You know, that's what you had to do, and some of your favorite, you know, earlier Chicago rappers did exactly that, you know. So, but when that came along in the blog and giving a voice to a certain level of artist, and also not just, you know, blogging, but like talking about their like people started like this getting interesting. Like I remember there's like videos like Wiz Khalifa getting a spider high on his porch or whatever, but lifestyle.
That's like before Instagram and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Before, and like all that stuff was like through the blog, and man, it just created side industries and marketing companies and everything that when that collapsed, it spun out. But like, man, there wouldn't be hardly a scene here.
Yeah.
In Chicago, like the blogs were incredibly important. And then also doesn't get, but they get their shine. Although, it's dead now, but, they get, what doesn't is at that time, remember, Coconuts, Tower, all of those stores were closing.
Right.
And artists, I remember when, like, Lupe dropped Food and Liquor at Coconuts on Wabash, like he did, like, an in-store signing. And those all went away. And the blog was there, so you could learn and see online, but there was no physical place. So when Juggernaut and Leaders and Dave Jeff with Fly Shop, or like now ours have like mixtape release parties at stores,
Right,
and
yeah.
like it, or leave back then we like like I still have my physical 10-day
Yeah, I
mixtape,
mean, like,
and you would leave
Juggernaut
it.
still has that in the front door.
Yeah, and you leave your CDs there, and you leave pluggers, and they did in-store shows, and man, like so many of like
I remember those little freestyles that they used to do.
Yeah.
In like the front room and what was that on? What was that? What street was it? Was it Wabash that they were on? No, it was
Dearborn.
Was it Dearborn?
I don't
It's
know.
where the Hooters was. I can't remember what street that is.
No,
right
that
now,
was
'cause it looks
that, no, that
completely
was
different now.
Wells.
Yeah,
It was which is now a KitchenAid appliance store. The
Yeah,
the
now it
OG
looks
Leaders
completely-
was, but
yeah.
yeah, man, like those were, and man, things. That's why I'm blessed to be in business 23 years, because now blogs and streetwear moved to Louis Vuitton now. It's like it's a whole now there's new things, and now podcast. It's just, man,
Everything just keeps evolving. So
Yeah.
you've seen it all evolve. I mean,
there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah,
and
it all cyclical at the end
if you
of
live long enough, you see everything. So.
Well, one thing I feel like, what was it like? I mean, everything you're talking about, like the Leaders and Juggernaut and Andrew and Alex, I feel like it all kind of coalesced. Do you feel like it all came together with Chance? I feel like that is the artist that really like Chance winning a Grammy. I feel like when you tell that whole background that you just told, feels like not like it's a certification of all that
to
stuff.
use a sports, and we'll have an analogy night. To use a sports analogy, I would use volleyball. To be real, Keith set it up.
Yeah,
and Chance knocked it down.
Yeah, and I would agree with that.
Because I remember, without naming names, sitting in the editor-in-chief of the Faders office many moons ago, and he was so geeked at like Little Dirk recorded here, and it's like, so he's like, man, and Young Chop and stuff, and it's like, so what else is interesting? And I mentioned like kids these days, and Chance is like, never heard of them.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah,
like, that was a real thing.
Now those guys went on to being on the cover of the Fader,
yeah.
of that very publication. Yeah,
but I mean, it seemed as though all that stuff you're kind of talking about, because after that, I mean, it's everyone's lives have kind of changed a bit. Like everything's kind of a little different. You have Lyrical Lemonade. You have a lot of different avenues for these things to come up. Spotify. But that seemed like the pinnacle of like blogging and everything in Chicago, that little era that you're talking about.
It was, it was. I've seen many eras come and go, but that was like a really like magic one, like some of those nights at the East Room and stuff.
Right.
Like it's like you.
Well, the sessions.
I think the city felt triumphant. I guess there was a certain like. Man, like people were like getting livings, making pay. There's like video directors, like we had streetwear stores, several doing amazing things. They're still doing amazing things. Fucking Joe has a New Balance shoe,
the All-Star stuff
that looks ridiculous, and I love Balances because I have big feet and they're light. But yeah, but that of some of the changing of the guards over the years, like this previous gen, there was a certain triumph. Like, man, we really. Like, I remember geeking watching TRL and seeing Driving Down the Block by Kids in the Hall come on ahead of after Britney Spears, which means we were higher on, that's what I made that record. And then like they cut to Times Square and you saw that big billboard and it showed the album cover. And it's like, man, like right now an album I did is like 8 stories tall on a light up billboard in Times Square, getting played on. At that time, like the most relevant music show on earth.
Which is crazy to think about now.
Shout out Carson Daly.
Is he still doing it then?
No.
I don't remember. Yeah, they had somebody else at that point, I think.
No.
Missed the Carson Daly. It's all right.
Yeah. Sometimes even miss MTV, man. It's more the music angle,
I mean, talk about, things coming and going.
Yeah.
How do you feel about, like, now, though? Like, that's something I've been talking to a lot of people on the podcast about is, like, we talk a lot about this like big era that just kind of passed, but I feel like we're entering a new one, and it seems a little bit more uncharted. It feels like
it's much more uncharted. It's much more undefined. It's much more, I feel, pure and not as clout chasey and
I'll
and
do that.
and and like the records I'm making now, like the young artists like Jack Larson or Mother Nature, just different people, Jamila, it's like these are like very like music with a purpose, and I always kind of when I was younger in high school, like man, what it would have been like to be alive in the '60s when like music was something more than like just smoke or turn up or whatever to like
Yeah.
man like it's like it's a little bit of a different time. And I like that everything's a little more stripped and honest now. So I'm liking it, man.
Mm-hmm. A little different
A
than
lot.
that.
And also, I like too at this point being making records for so long now. I like the fluidity in which I can get involved. Where
I was gonna ask you because like you were saying you were kind of learning that with George Clinton, right? Like how to be in each different part of the studio
yeah,
and stuff like that.
exactly. And I'm talking this even in the construct of the studio
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and record
Mm-hmm.
making. I have some artists that record on their own and at the crib, and then they bring me their Logic file and I jump in there and enhance it and get it to where it can still compete and be big yet not betray like the nature of the. I mean, there's a million different, like some mixers like make every record sound like their record and they have a heavy
Yeah.
sonic signature. I'm not, like, I'm here to like, man, like I'm here to honor like the vision of the artist and the producer. And I feel like if they're paying my rate, they must really like the record. They're hiring a professional to mix it and master it. And I kind of want to be true and enhance and beautify and just give what they created its highest pedestal to catch awareness and ears and compete in the industry. I really like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, sometimes like the old way of making records and sitting in a studio and like being on the clock and like we're in a studio and here's me behind the plate glass window like staring at you and we're not
Right.
getting there, and it's like it's like, man, sometimes that can be cool. Like high pressure is cool. Like I've made amazing high pressure records, but there's also something too that is like this era that reminds me of the '60s. It's stripped down, it's cleaner, it's a vibe, and it really is like just kind of speaking to the era we're in. So
Makes
I've
sense,
never
yeah.
been more optimistic, and people are like, well, man, people can record at home. It's like, I don't know, we've never been busier. Definitely, we have more like more of our sessions are of a different nature. I mean, we have some people that come here like because they can wail on drums,
Mm-hmm.
and then they take it home and mix it. So we have like drum only recording sessions. They come
That's
in like
interesting.
so it's like it's like so we stay booked really well, but we have way more different variations of sessions. People coming in home record. We still have plenty of people that record traditionally. We have people that just need to record instruments here. We have, man, it's all over the map,
Yeah.
which wasn't the case. It used to be a little more stock and trade of a certain, like we have a tracking session or a mixing and mastering session. And then how you can bounce along so quickly between everything.
I think it's amazing because
Yeah.
it's like something that's unique to Chicago too. I think you can't really like. There's not a lot of places to go bang on drums in New York.
Yeah, no.
Um,
That's why there's no New York music scene.
Right.
There's barely even a New York music business scene because they're all making the LA exodus. It's like I only go to New York for press reasons.
I mean,
It's
there's-
like
and they're leaving too. Like, a
even
lot
the artists I know when a major comes around, they're at the LA office. It's just too expensive. I mean,
Yeah.
and there's no, you can't even have like Austin. They brought Webster Hall back, but to make it work in today, they had to get rid of the dope basement where so many amazing young artists got their first chance to pop out in New York at a
Right.
reputable venue and earn, like so many of like your favorite Chicago artists' first New York pop out was in that little low ceiling
Yeah.
basement room there, and there's not, I mean, like shout out like Baby's All Right in Brooklyn for having that intimate room. But
SOBs kind of, but like
Yeah.
it's a little wide. Yeah.
yeah, it's it's like, yeah, just like I don't know anyone music creating there.
I know. Yeah, I remember trying to find an opening act for a band out there. And it was
Man,
like, for the Omas, and it was just like you couldn't. Everything was like a dream pop duo or like a single rapper. And
Oh
that was
man,
like-
we had Guru, Jay-Z's engineer here in Soundscape, complaining that sometimes he has a hard time last minute getting studio time for Jay-Z in New York City.
that's insane.
Jay-Z,
That's
let me
like-
rephrase.
yeah.
Jay-Z in New York City.
Right. Yeah. That's
'Cause
just
there's-
also like why doesn't Jay-Z have a studio of his own in New York City?
because there's only a handful of really good studios left in New York City, and like his wife has him locked out for months. You know, low key.
Yeah.
Oh man, I broke some news there, but yeah, it's just, there's not that many studios. You can't afford to live there.
No, it's crazy. I mean, I was just tweeting earlier today about I was walking downtown and there was like a Walgreens downtown that closed, and there's like a 7-Eleven in Wicker Park that closed. Like, how can a 7-Eleven not pay rent in Wicker Park? You know, like everything's just getting priced out, and it's like a weird time to be in a downtown type of area.
Chicago ain't far behind.
No,
with costs.
That's the shadow coming over.
Yeah, and all the weed tax in the world ain't gonna help fill these deficits.
$80 eighths. Shout out.
We need every Illinoisian smoking an ounce a day to like get these potholes.
Well, they don't even
filled.
have enough to keep up with that. So
Yeah, we don't even have enough if we all want it. If like Pritzker like mandated like a executive order, every Illinoisian will go buy 1 ounce a day. Bank holiday, City Hall is closed. You will go and smoke this and buy it legally and pay that tax.
Well, we're not far off, man.
No, it's coming one day.
Yeah,
they'll figure out a way to get their money. They always do.
Yeah, they do. It's Chicago, it's Illinois. They always get your pockets. I don't want to keep you too much longer. We're going a little long, but what's something you want to leave everybody with? Like, what's like a good lesson you've learned over these last years? Like, we went through a lot in a very short amount of time, but
yeah,
what's like something you kind of take with you from like all the experience you've had over the time building this empire, this sound recording empire of Soundscape that you've made here?
Gratitude. Like several generations of Chicago artists have trusted me to make sure their product is the best representation of themselves, man. Like the best face they can put forward, man. From Crucial Conflict decades ago to like them, like, man, first group with like a gold record that gave me a shot, you know, to Chance and the modern Jamila and stuff today. I was like, man, like, it's been an amazing journey. I could have kept this podcast going for 90 years with the stories.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
from that, like we could have gone. Man, we have a series of these. And,
I still plan on doing like the Kolar Chronicles one day. We're gonna get all these stories.
We'll collab on that, but it's that's bad. It's just like gratitude and this industry is so quick and easy to just take your soul down, take you down a few pegs, and just, you know, it's like you don't have to let it do that, you know, like, man, like, just remember a little gratitude. Like, we make records for a living, you know, like, we get to do cool things. So, like, you know, gratitude, take everything with a grain of salt. Don't worry what other people are doing. You know, just focus on yourself, and I don't know, those would be the takeaways.
Not bad advice.
Yeah.
Well, we could go all night with this thing.
Can we roll out with a little Coltrane? Can we bring?
You want to roll it out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me think to listen.
You got the scarf on. You got the jazz scarf on.
Oh, I do have the jazz scarf on though, but I think the album finished. Hold on.
Blue World on a blue desktop.
Did you hear that? They used to do that in the studio. This is called slating a recording. They say take one, and that's
left it in there. Well,
hi, I'm Michael Kolar. Thank you for tuning in tonight.
This has been Mild Sauce
Radio. I hope
Radio.
you find my voice rich and pleasant and as smooth as the. It just crashed. As smooth as the jazz you were listening to. But thank you for tuning in. It's my first time on Mild Sauce.
It's been a pleasure. I think we've been working towards this for a while.
Thank you for humoring my scarf.
Absolutely. Actually, I think it's
a little chilly tonight, though. It's damp and cold. It's like
it's very, a good scarf night. It's a good scarf
what do
night.
they call that in the East? A nor'easter.
Or
it's very cold. It's very. It's a New England evening. I feel like I should just eat fish sticks.
I know. I'm driving for some reason, but anyway, yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Or coming on, letting me come here and do this for many years or whatever. I appreciate it. In terms of gratitude, I appreciate you.
The pleasure's been all mine.
And yeah, we'll get the fuck out of here. This has been Mild Sauce Live. It's been Michael Kolar, Soundscape Studios, and we'll be back again next week. Thanks.